Miles of glass that thumb has traveled over the last year, swiping, tapping, scrolling, searching for a connection in a digital ocean that's designed to keep you thirsty. I know you feel exhausted. I know you feel like you're shouting into a void where the only response is a, "Hey," that leads nowhere, or a like from someone who hasn't even read your bio. You feel lonely, not because you're alone, but because you're being treated like a commodity in a marketplace that has forgotten you're a human being. The truth is, in 2026, the apps aren't broken. Your strategy is just outdated. You're playing a game of more, but the human heart wasn't built for more. It was built for meaning. Think about it this way. There's a concept in Zen philosophy called the empty cup. Imagine a traveler who is so thirsty, he finds a massive overflowing fountain. But instead of bringing a cup, he tries to catch the water with a sieve. He's surrounded by abundance. He's drenched in water, yet he remains dehydrated. That is exactly what you're doing when you swipe through 500 profiles on a Sunday night. You are standing in an ocean of options with a sieve, wondering why you still feel empty. Ancient wisdom teaches us that abundance without intention is actually a form of chaos. When you have infinite choices, you have zero freedom because you're paralyzed by the fear that the next swipe might be better than the person right in front of you. Modern psychology backs this up. I remember reading a landmark study on choice overload that fundamentally changed how I view modern dating. Researchers found that when people are presented with 6 types of jam, they're highly likely to buy one. But when they're presented with 24, they buy nothing. Their brains literally short circuit by seeing everyone. You are seeing no one. You've entered a state of decision fatigue where your brain's executive function, the part of you that recognizes humor, kindness, and soul, simply shuts down to save energy. You aren't bad at dating. You've just fallen into the trap of the slot machine. The apps want you to stay in the discovery phase forever because that's how they make their money. But if you want to find love, we have to move you from discovery to intention. We have to stop looking for the best person and start looking for the right person. And that starts with a radical shift in how you protect your own emotional energy. So, how do we actually break this cycle? We start by changing the signal you're sending out into the digital noise. Most people approach their dating profile like they're writing a resume for a job they don't even want. They try to be generally attractive because they're terrified of being specifically rejected. You know, the profiles I'm talking about, the ones with the same vacation photo, the same "I love dogs" and travel bio, the same curated, polished mask. But here's the psychological secret. In a world of infinite choice, being fine is the same as being invisible. If you try to appeal to everyone, you will attract no one of substance. You have to move toward what I call clear coding. Think about it this way. A beacon in the dark doesn't try to illuminate the entire ocean. It flashes a very specific light so that the right ship knows exactly where to dock. Your profile shouldn't be a billboard. It should be a filter. In 2026, the algorithm rewards vibe coding. This means replacing those generic, "I look good" photos with what I call life markers. If you love high-intensity debate, don't hide it. Show a photo of you in your element. If you're a total nerd for 1970s architecture, or you spend your Sundays volunteering at a cat shelter, put that front and center. You want to polarize the audience. You want the wrong person to see your profile and think, "That's not for me." Because that is the only way you create the space for the right person to say, "Finally, someone who speaks my language." I remember talking to a woman who was exhausted because she kept attracting low effort men. Her profile was beautiful, but it was hollow. It didn't give a man anything to hook onto. We changed her bio from "I like good food and wine" to "I'm looking for someone who can hold their own in a debate about why the book is always better than the movie." Suddenly, the lazy "hey" messages dropped by 80%, and the quality of the opening lines skyrocketed. She gave them a doorway, not a wall. Once you've fixed your signal, you have to protect your sanity with what I call the 30 profile ceiling. I need you to realize that your brain has a biological dopamine baseline. Every time you swipe, you get a tiny hit of neurochemical reward. But if you do that 50, 80, 100 times in a row, you hit a state of diminishing returns. You start to experience objectification drift. This is a psychological phenomenon where you stop seeing the person in the photo as a human with a mother, a history, and a heartbreak, and you start seeing them as a digital asset to be judged in half a second. When you hit that state, you have lost your ability to fall in love. You've become a consumer, not a connector. So I want you to set a hard limit. You look at 30 profiles, no more. If you don't find a match in those 30, you close the app, you put the phone down, you go back to your life. This forces you to actually read the bios of those 30 people. It forces you to give them the same depth of attention you want someone to give to you. You are reclaiming your time from the algorithm and giving it back to your humanity. You aren't looking for a needle in a haystack anymore. You're looking for a person in a crowd now that you've refined your signal and protected your energy. We have to address the place where most potential romances go to die, the digital purgatory. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that endless, lukewarm stream of "how was your day?" and "work was crazy" texts that stretch on for weeks. You feel like you're building a connection, but you're actually just building a fantasy. The psychological danger here is something called false intimacy. When you text someone for 2 weeks without meeting, your brain starts to fill in the gaps of their personality with exactly what you want them to be. You aren't falling in love with them. You're falling in love with a character you've written in your head, using their profile as a prompt. And because you've invested so much textual labor, the eventual real-life meeting almost always feels like a letdown. The chemistry isn't there because the person in front of you can't possibly compete with the version you created in your imagination. In 2026, the apps are designed to keep you in the chat. The longer you stay on the platform, the more valuable you are to their shareholders. But you aren't here to be a data point. You're here to be a partner. That's why you need to implement the 48-hole rule. Think about it this way. A match is like a spark. If you don't give that spark oxygen within a very short window, it doesn't matter how much fuel you have, it's going to go out. I'm not saying you have to be at a bar with a stranger 2 hours after matching. I'm saying you need to move from texting to time boxing. Within 48 hours of a high-quality conversation starting, there needs to be a move toward what I call a vibe check. That could be a 3-minute voice note or a quick 5-minute video call. I remember a client of mine, Sarah, who spent a month dating a guy through WhatsApp. They shared their deepest fears, their childhood dreams, and thousands of emojis. When they finally met for coffee, she knew within 4 seconds, literally 4 seconds, that there was zero physical or energetic chemistry. She cried the whole way home, not because she missed him, but because she felt robbed of a month of her life. There is a biological component to attraction that a screen simply cannot transmit. We need to hear the cadence of a voice, see the way their eyes crinkle when they laugh, and sense their presence. When you time box the digital phase, you're practicing a high form of self-respect. You are saying, my emotional labor is too valuable to spend on a pen pal. If they resist a quick voice note or a video check, and after a couple of days, they aren't shy. They are either low intent or they are hiding something. Either way, you have your answer. Move on. Finally, we have to talk about the high intent bio flip. Most people approach their bio with a consumer mindset. They write a list of requirements. Must be 6 feet tall. must love travel, must be funny. This creates a psychological barrier. It makes you look like a judge in a pageant rather than a person looking for a partner. Think about it this way. Would you rather walk into a room where someone is holding a clipboard, checking off your flaws, or a room where someone is enthusiastically building something beautiful and invites you to grab a hammer? I want you to flip the script from what I want to where I'm going. Instead of saying, I want someone adventurous, try saying, my life is a mix of slow Sunday mornings with a book and planning my next hike in the Alps. I'm looking for someone to share the view with. Do you feel the difference? One is a demand, the other is an invitation. This triggers the investment principle. High-quality partners don't want to be interviewed. For a role, they want to be inspired to join a journey. When you make these shifts, you stop being a victim of the algorithm and you start becoming the architect of your own romantic life. You move from the desperation of will they like me to the power of do they fit the life I am already creating. I want to tell you something that might be hard to hear, but it's the most liberating truth you will encounter this year. The reason you feel so drained by dating apps isn't because you're failing at finding love. It's because you've accidentally tied your sense of worth to a digital slot machine that isn't even designed to pay out. When you wake up and the first thing you do is check your matches, you are essentially asking a group of strangers to vote on whether you are enough today. And if the notification screen is empty, you carry that quiet, heavy rejection into your coffee, your work, and your mirror. Think about it this way. If you went to a library to find a specific book, but the librarian insisted on showing you 10,000 random covers first, you wouldn't blame yourself for being unable to read. You'd blame the system, yet when it comes to your heart, you take the system's inefficiency and turn it into a personal indictment of your character. You tell yourself, maybe I'm not interesting enough, or maybe the apps just don't work for people like me. I remember reading a psychological study on learned helplessness. Researchers found that when people feel they have no control over a negative outcome, they eventually stop trying altogether, even when the door is finally unlocked. That is the state many of you are in right now. You're swiping with dead eyes, hoping for a miracle, but expecting a ghosting. The most radical thing you can do in 2026 is to reclaim your internal locus of control. This means deciding that your happiness is no longer a hostage to an algorithm. You are going to use these tools, but you will no longer let them use you. You're going to walk into the digital world with the high intent flip we talked about, showing the world exactly who you are, not because you're seeking approval, but because you are offering an invitation to a life that is already worth living. I want you to try an experiment for the next 7 days. I call it the sanctity gap. Do not open a single dating app for the first hour of your day or the last hour of your night. Protect those windows. Your dopamine baseline needs those hours to reset. If the first thing you consume is the judgment of others, you will spend the rest of the day starving for validation. But if you fill those hours with your own thoughts, your own goals, and your own peace, you enter the dating arena not as a beggar, but as a king or queen. You become the person who is vibe coding their life, not someone desperately trying to fit into someone else's. I know it feels lonely sometimes. I know there are Friday nights where the silence in your house feels like a physical weight. But I promise you that silence is infinitely better than the noise of the wrong person. When you stop sieve-swiping and start cup-filling, the right people notice. They notice because you no longer smell like need. You smell like purpose. You have to remember that the goal of a dating app should be to get off the dating app. It is a bridge, not a destination. And if the bridge you're walking on feels like it's crumbling, stop running faster. Just start walking more intentionally. Take these 4 steps, polarize your profile, cap your swipes, box your time, and flip your intent. Watch how the energy around you changes. Watch how you start to attract people who are also tired of the games because they finally see a signal they can trust. You are not a profile. You are not a collection of pixels. You are a breathtakingly complex human being with a story that deserves to be heard, not just liked. Go out there and start living that story in the real world, and let the app simply be the secretary that handles the introductions. If this resonated with you, if you felt that choice overload or that digital purgatory, I want you to leave a comment below. Not for the algorithm, but for the person reading this who thinks they're the only one struggling. Tell them they aren't alone. Tell them you're reclaiming your thumb and your heart today. I want to leave you with one final thought, something that most dating coaches will never tell you because it isn't profitable for them to say it. The ultimate hack to dating in 2026 isn't a secret line or a magic photo. It is your willingness to be the person who goes first. We are living through an epidemic of wait and see. Everyone is waiting for the other person to be vulnerable first, to be consistent first, to be real first. We've all become so terrified of being the one who cares more that we've created a culture of cool indifference. But indifference never led to intimacy. It only leads to a very stylish, very lonely stalemate. Think about it this way. Imagine two people standing on opposite sides of a canyon. Both are waiting for the other to build the bridge. Years pass. They both starve. They both die alone, proud of the fact that they never lowered themselves to pick up a hammer. That is what the modern dating landscape looks like right now. It is a canyon of people waiting for proof of safety before they offer a single ounce of themselves. I remember reading a study on the investment model of commitment by Carol Rusbolt. It's a fascinating piece of psychological work that explains why some relationships thrive while others evaporate. It found that the strongest predictor of a lasting bond isn't just satisfaction, it's investment. If you don't invest, you don't value. And if you don't value, you don't stay. By holding back your personality, by playing it safe with hey and how's your week. You are actually preventing the other person from valuing you. You are giving them nothing to invest in. So here is my final challenge to you. I want you to become a high-value investor. This doesn't mean you give your heart away on day one. It means you give your authenticity away on day one. When you match with someone, don't wait for them to set the tone. You set the tone if you are a deep, soulful person who hates small talk. Skip the small talk. Ask them, what's something that made you change your mind recently? Or, what's a project that makes you lose track of time? I know that feels scary. I know you feel that tightening in your chest. The fear that if you show your true self, they'll swipe away. But I want you to look at that fear through a different lens. If you show your true self and they leave, that isn't a rejection. That is a preemptive strike for your own happiness. They are effectively telling you, I am not the person who can handle your depth. And they are doing you the courtesy of leaving before you waste 6 months of your life trying to shrink yourself to fit into their narrow world. Think of your life as a beautifully curated dinner party. Most people are standing outside the window, wondering if the food is good or if the music is too loud. Most people are waiting for a formal, gold-embossed invitation. But the right person is the one who sees the light through the glass, walks up to the door, and knocks. Your job isn't to chase the people standing on the sidewalk. Your job is to make sure the lights are on and the door is unlocked for the one who knocks. I want you to realize that you are the prize, not in an arrogant way, but in a factual, biological, and spiritual way. There is only one version of your specific experience, your specific humor, and your specific heart. In a world of AI-generated profiles and bot-driven conversations, your humanity is the most expensive currency on the market. Don't spend it like it's cheap. Don't throw it at people who haven't shown they have a cup to hold your water. As you close this video and go back to your day, I want you to take a deep breath and feel the space in your chest. That space is yours. No app owns it. No match defines it. You are going to go back into the world, not as a seeker, but as a source. You are the source of your own validation, the source of your own excitement, and the source of your own high standards. When you approach dating from a place of source, the energy shifts. You no longer walk into a date wondering, do they like me? You walk in wondering, is there enough room in my incredible life for this person to sit at my table? That shift in perspective is the difference between being a user of an app and being a master of your destiny. I am so proud of you for having the courage to keep your heart open in a world that tells you to keep it closed. I'm proud of you for watching this and deciding that 2026 is the year you stop playing small. You are ready. You have the tools. Now, go out there and be the person who builds the bridge.